Former friend who called me a bad influence for being child-free just demanded today that I take in his family plus 3 kids into my home. Let me start by saying that I'm not looking for validation or approval here. I'm confident that I made the right decision. I just need to vent about this stressful day to the only people who get me, the CF community. Here's the deal. An old friend who I haven't talked to in almost 3 years suddenly reached out to me. He said he had a home emergency and needed a place for him, his wife, and his 3 kids to crash while they fixed it. This is the same guy who, when I was going through a rough patch, dumped me as a friend because he thought I was a bad influence on his kids for being child-free. Some context, the reason we stopped being friends. I was in a very bad place and feeling depressed. My dad's death was just one of the many awful things that happened in 3 months. I needed some support and comfort, but Dave told me that being a CF woman made me a negative influence on his family. He had a wife and 2 kids then. Basically, he didn't want to hang out with me anymore because he had better friends who were more valuable. We had been friends since grad school and had a lot of fun together doing things like rock climbing. Dave and I were part of a group of mutual friends who often rented lake houses or winter lodges for summer and winter sports. We're talking more than 10 years of friendship. Then he just cut me off because he thought I was useless. That really hurt, especially when I was dealing with so much pain, and I was always there for him when his mom got cancer and when she passed away. As I said, I haven't spoken or texted him in almost 3 years. I figured he was just one of those people who change when they have kids, that they become more traditional and conservative and think that anyone who doesn't want or strive for a Leave It to Beaver 2, 5 kids lifestyle is somehow weird. Then today, I saw a text from Dave on my phone. I never deleted or blocked his number from my phone, so his name was still there. And this is what he said. He asked me to let him and his 3 kids stay at my house because their water heater broke, and it was kind of an urgent situation. He knew I lived in the same city as him, and it would be a huge favor, and he would repay me. Wow, that was a lot to take in. Apparently, after he told me I was a bad influence, he and his wife had a 3rd kid. A COVID baby, I guess. My main question was why me of all people? I asked Dave why he wanted me to do this for him. He said he had no other choice, and that no one had space for him and his 3 kids, especially with his 5-month-old. I asked him why he couldn't book a hotel room for them. He said that was too expensive, and they already had a lot of medical debt from their latest kid who had to be in the NICU when he was born. I said that sounded hard, but again, why me? He said he remembered I helped someone out last year with emergency housing and saw I had enough extra room for guests. He said I was so kind back then, and I could be kind to him now. I was sure what he was referring to, but I wanted to know how he knew. That situation was sensitive, and I thought it was a private family matter. He said the couple I helped posted it on Facebook. A quick detour. Around this time last year, one of my close college friends, Kate, who has lupus contracted pandemic-19. She was very cautious too. It was awful because this was before the vaccines were available for vulnerable people. She is in her mid-30s like me and very fit except for lupus. She's actually a marathon runner. Kate's lupus made COVID worse and she ended up in the ICU. To make matters worse, she was pregnant and her husband had to choose between saving her life or the fetus. It was either giving Kate the medicine and care she needed to survive, even if it meant losing the fetus, or letting her die. Luckily, he's a good guy and let the doctors terminate the pregnancy to save her life. Kate's mother was a jerk. She said her daughter should have died with the baby. She said Kate's life was worthless now and even tried to bring in a priest to give her last rites. Kate was in a coma then. This caused a huge drama, as you can imagine. Kate's brother and his wife needed a place to stay so they could escape from their abusive stepmother as soon as possible. I had a spare room, and I live close to the hospital. They stayed with me for 2 days until they found a hotel room in one of those long-term residence hotels. No one was sure if Kate would make it out alive, so they understandably wanted to be near her. They lived out of state and were staying with the abusive mother while their sister was in the hospital. Thankfully, Kate survived and has since cut off her mother. She actually remembers, while in the coma, hearing the priest trying to get in. I welcomed the brother and his wife into my home because they were good people, always supportive, and still some of the most courteous people I know. Apparently, unknown to me because I'm not on Facebook, either Kate's brother or his wife posted something about how kind I was to help them in a desperate time of need and a ray of hope during a very dark time for them. They said the same thing to me in person. I just didn't know they shared the situation on social media. So back to today, Dave saw that stuff last year, remembered it, and thought I would let him and his kids into my home without any hesitation. Honestly, I told him to get lost. I was angry he was trying to manipulate me into letting him and his family into my house for an unknown amount of time. That he knows I'm child-free Heck, he even said me being child-free was a negative influence on his family. Yet, all of a sudden, when it suits him, I'm suddenly not a bad influence, and he should be able to come back into my life without even a single sorry for the terrible things he said 3 years ago. I told him being child-free means I don't want kids in my house for a long time. If I did, I wouldn't be child-free. That I was not going to disturb my life and my 2 cats, to be a hostel for his 3 kids. He said I was selfish, and to think of his kids, that there's no hot water in his house. I told him to deal with it, that he can use a credit card or get one of his relatives to pay for a hotel stay. He gave me more excuses, mentioned their medical debt again, and said it would only be for a few days. I said that several days for a broken water heater sounds very dubious. Stuff like that can be fixed fairly quickly. I know the residency laws in our state, and if someone stays 7 days in someone's home, they can claim tenant rights. I was not going to risk this becoming a situation where I can't get rid of them. He scolded me, and then threatened to expose me on social media and to all my friends that I refused to help a family of 3 in a crisis, that I wanted little kids to suffer, told him to go away and suck a lemon. He hasn't been a friend for years. He doesn't even know where I live. All he knows is that I'm somewhere nearby in the same city and that I live by myself. He can rant about me on social media all he likes. I'm not on Facebook, so I don't care what a bunch of Karens think of me. Told him social media isn't real life. If he does actually share this with my real friends, that they'd mock him to his face. I told him I had all of his text messages for proof of how he treated me and what a fool he was. Told him he was once a good guy, that we had a lot of fun times together, that I'm still sorry about his mom, and I am sorry that he chose this path in life since it seems like he must be really unhappy, but he's a negative influence in my life, so I just can't have him around. I'm sure he'll get it since he said the same about me. That was the summary of the last thing I said. He raged until I blocked him. I'm really sad about it. He really used to be a good person back 10 years ago, and his mom was a wonderful woman. I'm now preparing myself for flying monkeys who may show up and try to pressure me into taking in his family. Can't wait to tell them to take in his family themselves. I already discussed the situation with my 2 best friends, and they both were appalled that Dave was so bold and had no shame. They thought it was suspicious that he was so insistent on getting into my home, and for days. One friend said that her water heater broke recently and had a plumber come out the same day. It only took a day for it to be fixed. Being against the hotel idea was a warning sign to them. They are curious what the whole story is. I agreed that it feels like something is off. I do feel a justice about all this. I know I did the right thing. I hate that a previous kindness was used as a weapon against me. Years ago, I thought maybe he had a point that I was somehow not good enough. BC, I was pretty depressed. Like, people don't want sad people around. Now with clarity, I see that he had a very bad character, but it did bring back old memories, sad memories. Anyway, thanks for reading if you made it all the way through this. Had to get this off my chest and vent. Update: Dave's water heater. A former friend who called me a bad influence on his family now wants me to house his family. Well, I'm happy and a little surprised most things have settled a little more than 24 HRs after they started. I guess this is the advantage of people working on your behalf behind the scenes. Also wanted to thank all of those who commented on the last post. I appreciated the support and knew you'd understand my ranting. RIP the inbox, but I did read everything, and you all are the best Reddit community. Not a single troll, which I think might be a Reddit miracle. So on to the update. I'm writing this with a cup of hot tea and recommend you do the same. This is going to be long. Well, all of your instincts were right. A broken water heater making a family of 5 need alternative housing was fishy, especially since Dave doesn't even have a water heater. It was all a lie. So here's the deal. Dave sold his house 6 months ago, and him and his wife, Shelly, have been trying to buy a bigger home ever since. They're right now, as I type this, already in a hotel with their kids. They have plenty of hot water. I can imagine all of you shaking your heads up and down saying, yep. I know you've been waiting for an update because that water heater excuse just didn't make sense. So here it is. Seriously, get yourself some tea. So, my sister is in another time zone and has a few hours on me. She apparently has been working on finding out about Dave. Her husband had a side gig as a PI in grad school, and she has a supernatural knack of finding out things about people. She's a little snooper in a good way. She also has a social media profile where I do not. I gave her Dave's full legal name and things I knew about him, like an address I had for him, and names of his wife and the 2 kids I know. She went to work. She told me that his home went up for sale about 6 mo ago and sold pretty fast for a lot more than what it was bought for years ago. It's a seller's market, and it was a huge deal. I was like, oh, that's so intriguing. She then went to say that she searched around in the city and nearby towns and couldn't find him buying any other property, that it looked like his house sold for $1, but that's it. So I then texted my 2 friends from yesterday. I told them what my sister found, that it looks like Dave sold his house and doesn't actually have a water heater issue because he doesn't have a water heater. My friends were stunned. So one of the 2 friends, Allison, got in touch with my sister, and they went on a social media deep dive. My sister was very concerned I was being scammed. Allison was a grad school mate along with me and Dave 10+ wars ago. She was never very close with him, and he wasn't on her radar, but she was among his Facebook friends. I guess thanks goes out to people of Facebook friending literally everybody they even vaguely know. At about the same time, I heard back from Kate's brother and sister-in-law who stayed with me back when Kate was in the hospital. It was Kate's Esiel Laura who posted about being grateful for my generosity on Facebook. She confirmed she had posted a couple pictures. They were of my cat, who was looking like she was setting the ground rules, and one of my big plants, a Monstera deliciosa, because she liked them. Thing was that you could infer things about the home. Neat, and a large kitchen, nice pantry. This will be relevant. I filled her in about what was going on, and she was horrified that she might have been partly to blame for why Dave wanted to get into my house. She took down the post, untagging my name, and showed me a screen capture verifying she did so, and asked if she can help with anything else. I told her my sister is apparently doing a deep dive and maybe could use help. I put Laura in contact with my sister. Laura apparently also got in contact with Allison. Seemingly randomly and late in the morning, I was asked by Allison for screen grabs of the exact point in the text conversation where Dave says his emergency is about the water heater, and it's why he needs me to do him a favor and take in his family kids for a few days. I gave it to her, and it was radio silence for most of the day. I thought, I wonder what is going on. So in the early evening, I get a lot more of the story. I got texts from my sister, Allison, and Laura. I'm going to try and bullet point it. It's a bit roundabout. Dave and his wife Shelly did sell their house 6 months ago. They wanted more space and bedrooms for their now 3 kids and wanted to upgrade. It being a huge and crazy seller's market, their home was estimated to have gained high 6 figures in equity since they bought it. They were thrilled to put in on the market. Dave and wife wanted to get top price for the house, so they sold it without a contingency that they first need to buy a home before the seller could move in and officially take the house. Dave was sure with the huge sale that they could get another one quickly. Their house was sold fast, and there was a bidding war. Dave boasted about it. Him and Shelly went about trying to buy another home, except it wasn't easy at all. All the homes they put a bid in went to someone else who outbid them. Time came for the new sellers to take over the house, and they had to move out. Dave and Shelly didn't think this was that big of a deal. A friend of theirs let them stay with the agreement that it would be short-term and they would be actively looking for a house, which Dave and Shelly were doing, but they still were losing out. They refused to compromise or change their budget. They would not consider homes that were the same size as their old one, because the whole point of selling was to get a bigger home. They couldn't beat any of the bidding wars. Dave refused to spend more. Indeed, their 3rd kid was born early and was in the NICU, so they do actually have medical bills. He doesn't want to shell out anything more or take out more loans. So Dave, Shelly, and the 3 kids moved to another place to stay. They continue to search for homes and can't find one. This happens again to a 3rd person's home. At this point, people are trying to tell him that maybe it's a good idea to wait for the housing bubble to burst when it's not such a seller's market and get an apartment for now. Dave rejects this because an apartment costs money, similar to a mortgage. If he's going to pay for living space per month, that it better be a mortgage. He thinks paying for an apartment is a waste of money. Shelly is even more furious at the suggestion. She doesn't want to be in an apartment that will be smaller than their old home. Dave's family seems to be wearing out their welcome. People are getting irritated. Dave and Shelly are not willing to contribute for groceries. Dave's family is now on the 4th place of people willing to take them in. A month ago is when they run out of options for free housing. Funnily, they were all kicked out because people needed the room for their own family coming for the holidays. No one wants to take the moochers in anymore. Shelly is a school teacher in the city, and because of that and that the kids are back in school, they really need to stay in the city. But their only other options now for free housing is Dave's brother, who lives about 2 HRs away, and Shelly's parents, who live 6 HRS away. Neither option is good for Dave and Shelly's jobs or their kids getting to in-person classes. So Dave and family needed housing ASAP and booked a hotel. They're really annoyed about it because their kids are noisy and the hotel staff is nagging them to be quieter. Dave and Shelley whine how they hate living out of a hotel, how it is unfair they can't get a house with all the money they have. To be clear, they have more than enough money to get by living in a hotel, which is still way more expensive than renting an apartment. Dave likes the idea of the hotel because it's not signing a lease. They can leave anytime and they have cleaning service. Shelley goes all poor me because she says that the kids are so unhappy they don't have a backyard to play in. How being in a hotel doesn't let the kids be kids? Slight segue. Allison goes back in Shelley's posts and finds a situation in which she and a bunch of her friends are talking not so kindly about me. It's a situation that happened at the start of the pandemic. It was back when people freaked out and started buying out all the toilet paper. People also bought a lot of food items before it could be restocked because of panic buying. A person I used to go to grad school and was friends with got in touch with me to ask how I was doing. I thought she was contacting me to offer help and be nice. Her motivation was to get me to give her my food. I've had a chest freezer and a wall-stock pantry for a long time. Having a working pantry is something that got passed to me from my Oma, grandma, who survived World War II. My mom did it, and now I do it too. Well, this friend, who was seemingly nice to me, knows I have a good amount of food. She said she needs me to give her some of my food because I don't have any kids to feed. She said her kid is a fussy eater, and I probably have a lot of frozen chicken to spare. I was amazed by the nerve and told her that if she was in need of food, that there is a food pantry to go to. I'm not gonna just give her my food because her son is picky and only eats her homemade chicken nuggets. It's not a food crisis, it's panic buying. If she just gets to the grocery store early in the morning, midweek when they usually restock, she'll easily get chicken. She told me I'm selfish. Apparently, she took this to social media to talk behind my back with others who were spouses of grad school friends. Back to Shelley posts. Shelley backs up the woman who tried to get me to give her my frozen chicken. Shelley also thinks I'm selfish for not helping a mother out. She says it's really strange for me to keep so much food around when it's only me, that I obviously have issues. If you guess the "you're a bad influence" must have been a seed planted by Dave's wife, I think you are right. When Laura posted about my generosity of them staying a couple days before they found a long-term hotel situation while Kate was hospitalized, there were some comments made by Shelley how nice it was for me to do that, sweet as can be, and that my home looked amazing. This web of friendships is seemingly complicated, but basically, it's a lot of people who know each other from grad school. Grad school was hard, and we all let off steam by organizing vacations before most of us were married or had kids yet. I always invited my close college friends, who stayed in the state, to the group vacations where we'd all pitch in and rent out lake houses or cabins at ski resorts. Again, recent posts have Shelley going all poor me because she says that the kids are so unhappy they don't have a backyard to play in. How being in a hotel doesn't let the kids be kids. Then there is a weird Shelley post 2 days ago that sounds like her family has found a place that's so cute and her kids will be able to get out of the hotel situation. She says it has a great kitchen for her kids. Q Dave texting me yesterday asking me, after no contact for 3 years, that he has a broken water heater and needs me to take in his family for a few days while it gets fixed. Obviously, you all know I told him no. Well. My friends see that Dave and Shelley have made some passive-aggressive comments on social media this morning, how society is awful nowadays when friends back out on their offer of helping families with kids out of a tough situation. Shelley says her cute home situation fell through. She gets a bunch of sympathy from her Karen friends. She says her kids are so let down. I think this is probably when Allison asked for my screen grabs of Dave's water heater sob story. Allison goes on a rampage and shares the screen grabs of Dave's water heater lie. She and Laura start calling them out. They share the truth that Dave and Shelley did not have a new housing situation lined up. They were trying to get into my home by lying about a broken water heater, that I had never agreed to having them stay in my home. Laura called them monsters for trying to take advantage of me. Allison went berserk about the situation from 3 years ago. My real friends like Allison were very much there for me, while people like Dave were like, "Yeah, I don't care, plus you're a bad influence on my family." Allison let everyone know about Dave calling me a bad influence on his family for my child-free lifestyle and how he's pathetic thinking he can walk back into someone's life who he insulted. Allison is also child-free herself. People told off Dave for being super rude and now wanting favors. It turned out that people started calling him a moocher and a parasite. The people who hosted his family for the last 6 months came forward to slam him. One person told how filthy Dave's family was and how crazy the amount of extra cleaning they had to do was. That his kids had no respect. They harassed their dogs, and it was a relief when they finally left. People were furious that they were trying to trick me and then paint me as the villain on social media. There were people I hadn't spoken to in a long time who defended me and said I was a good person, how I helped them in grad school for random things, and didn't deserve this. So nice to hear. Some mentioned how I've helped people find jobs, something more than Dave has ever done. I'm very active in the grad school networking community, and I like sharing job openings and advice about finding scientific jobs and mentoring. Dave's own brother said he was appalled by this behavior. He recalled how much I helped when their mom died. He said their mom would be turning in her grave if she knew how he was treating people. My sister got me to Zoom with her and shared her screen with me to show me what the fuss looked like. Maybe this is why I never actually received a single message from anyone about not letting a family into my home. I was expecting flying monkeys. I never got them. My God, the Schadenfreude. Dave said he was going to expose me on Facebook. Ends up getting exposed himself. How dumb. How incredibly dumb. I had the texts of him lying about that damned water heater. He must have thought, since I wasn't on social media, that I'd never be able to tell others he was lying about a water heater, or know that he was currently enjoying hot hotel water. I feel like I avoided a nuclear warhead. I had to make myself a drink after work and really think about all this. After thinking about it and considering all the context, I believe Dave and Shelley were going to try and squat in my home. He went off when I mentioned the 7-day rule when people get tenants' rights in our state. I knew it was fishy. You all called it too. I'm thinking he was a stingy jerk who didn't want to spend more money for a hotel. He still didn't want to look for an apartment. He had used up all in-city free housing options with friends. I was a last resort. His wife vaguely knew I was open to guests. She also knew my home was nice and that I had a lot of food for her kids to eat. They had a reputation already for eating people out of house and home. If they stayed with me for a week, they'd be tenants, and I'd have to waste time kicking them out. With the courts as they are, it probably would have taken months to evict them. Much easier to run a scam on a single person and push them out of their own home than try to do the same thing with his real friends who already have kids and not a lot of ample space. He was only looking for free housing so he'd be able to put every penny he had into his goal of buying a 4+ bedroom house with all the money he got in the sale of his old home. I don't know for sure, but it makes sense. So I decided to send him one last text. I unblocked him and sent him this before reblocking his number. Hey Dave, so I found out you were lying about that water heater. You don't even have a water heater. You're living in a hotel along with sitting on a huge pile of cash from selling your old home. I think it's really dishonest of you for lying to me and trying to get into my home to leech off me, especially because you ruined our friendship when you called me a bad influence on your family. I didn't tell you back then, but I'm telling you now that you are garbage. Your mom would be ashamed of you. I realize it's all projection because you are the bad influence, not only on my life, but on the lives of others. If you really thought I was a bad influence, you never would have attempted to get your family into my home this week. But if you still believe I'm some sort of bad influence, then you won't have to bother about me assisting you or doing any kind of favor in the future. I'm going to keep my bad influence far away from your family. Oh, and Shelley seems like she's become a real delight. The last thing I will do for you, because I'm not a beast, is to say that you need to do your responsibility as a husband and father and pay to get a secure apartment for your family. Stop playing these parasite games. Here's a link to our local Craigslist housing page. I'm sure you'll find something. Oh, and hope to see you at the next non-Zoom alumni event. I'm sure it'll be wonderful to catch up in person. So it's over. I said my piece. Once again, you all were right that something else was happening. I feel really sick right now how someone could plan to do this to me. Also feeling kind of sick thinking about the possibility of letting them into my home. That would have been a horror.